Lizzo's legal limbo talks about the recent allegations that have been coming out against Lizzo and her team. And I watched this 40-minute interview slash documentary on Hulu. These are my thoughts on the show, but before we continue, I just want to provide a little disclaimer. I am not a legal person. I am not a legal professional by any meaning of the word. I am just your average Hulu watcher who watched this because it popped up on my suggestion page. I also think it is worth noting this is the first thing I've seen or watched or read or anything about this story. So I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody who doesn't necessarily keep up with stories like this. And this is and has been my only source that I am pulling and drawing my ideas from. So, like I said, this show features three of Lizzo's former background dancers and walks through their experiences dancing alongside Lizzo. The three dancers, Crystal Williams, Noel Rodriguez, and Ariana Davis, walk through explaining how bad working for the superstar was, but so many questions and concerns popped into my head as I was watching this on my TV. Going through this video chronologically, the first thing that stood out to me was Crystal and Ariana claiming Lizzo wrongfully fired them. Noelle said she voluntarily left on her own accord because the treatment of the employees was so terrible, but the story the other two gave left me asking some questions. One of the examples they give on the terrible treatment of the employees is the optional attendance of a club that features nude performers in Amsterdam. All three of these women agreed attending this after work event was completely optional, but they also said they felt pressured. This is the first issue I come across as a viewer, and I wasn't even watching this for 10 minutes. This is within the first 10 minutes of this interview. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're in school, at work, at a community event, wherever. Individuals should know better than to fall to peer pressure. Not falling to peer pressure is taught to us in elementary school. Growing up, how often did we hear, don't do things just to fit in, or don't do things you're not comfortable with, or don't feel like you need to change yourself for people to accept you? Regarding this section of the short documentary as well, the three dancers felt pressured to go because they were fearful of losing their jobs. According to the lawsuit, those who went on tour were heavily encouraged to attend the after party events Lizzo had planned because those who attended the after parties were widely considered to have a greater job security than those who did not. Watching this, the three dancers come across as very, I had no choice but to go and be miserable, but they did have a choice and they chose to go. I mean, they chose to go to this after party at this adult club. The club was called Banana Bar, where they had nude models playing with adult toys and bananas. If we follow their line of thinking that those who attended the after party were widely considered to enjoy greater job security, I'm curious to know where the proof in that lies or how legitimate that claim is. People in corporate America sometimes have that mentality as well, where we hear employees saying they feel like they need to be at all the happy hours even though they don't drink, or they might not even necessarily want to be there. We hear people say they feel like they need to be the ones working 80-hour work weeks because they don't want to be at the risk of losing their livelihood. We hear the people who are in the office the most make themselves the most known, often reap the rewards of that. But where does the truth in this generalization lie? The dancers featured on this special didn't talk about any specifics, like, hey, I saw a person being at all of the events and being rewarded with this increased job security. So, with this statement, much like everything that I took issue with throughout this documentary, felt like an overgeneralization or an assumption of something that the documentary and the interview itself didn't justify or validate. I felt like it left a lot of loose ends. As far as the peer pressure goes as well, nobody stood up for themselves and said they did not want to go. Noelle says Lizzo shouldn't have been taking her employees to a sexually charged event, but at the same time, why didn't the employees have the wherewithal or the self-worth or whatever you want to call it to stand up for themselves and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with going to a nude club? You can blame it on job security, you can blame it on being scared, you can blame it on whatever you want. But at the end of the day, the people who went with Lizzo to this club made the decision to go. Ultimately, they chose to go. Like, it was a choice that they made. So I don't think it's right when these three are sitting on this couch putting the entire blame on Lizzo when they were key factors in the decision-making process as well. They were the last line of defense. They were ultimately the ones that said, yes, I am going. And at any time, they could have left. At any time, they had the freedom to leave, go back to their hotel, go back to wherever they were staying. But they never touched on that throughout the interview. Continuing on with the issue at the club after party, Ariana tells a story where Lizzo was encouraging her dancers to come up and touch the nude performers. Immediately, Ariana tells the interviewer she told Lizzo no. But in response to that, the interviewer says, nowhere in this lawsuit does it say you said no. So she asks Ariana if she said no or if she said something else that she intended to indicate no. And Ariana says,
that depends on if people consider African American vernacular English to be improper or not.
to me, this question came off as very direct. Ariana is asked if she said no or if she said something else to indicate no. From her answer, I assume Ariana said something else that she was intending to mean no. For me, though, I'm wondering why Ariana even let there be any room for misinterpretation if she was so uncomfortable. If she truly meant no, and if no means no, why didn't Ariana come out and just say no? Why would she even put herself in the situation where she's having to deal with, oh, what if this isn't interpreted how I wanted it to be interpreted, or leaving anyone the room to misinterpret anything if she is truly so uncomfortable? If Ariana's answer was a hard no, she should have said no. If she wanted to portray the idea of no without any room for misinterpretation, she should have just said no with no room for misinterpretation. If she didn't say no, however, she should not have said she said no.
It's your turn, like, come do it. I was like, I'm good. Nope.
If she's giving us a recollection of what happened and she changes her story from "I said no" to "I said something in African American vernacular that was intended to mean no," obviously she remembers what she said. If she remembers she said something in African American English to portray the idea of no, and she remembers she didn't verbatim say no. Even if she doesn't remember exactly what she said, she could have used this opportunity to share with us what she said or the idea of what she said instead of blaming everyone else for what she did or didn't say. Just her saying, "I said no," and then changing her story so quickly to "I said something that I interpreted and meant to mean no" really rubbed me the wrong way as a viewer while I was watching this. To me, it feels like Ariana does most of the talking in this interview, and the next issue she touches on is her weight gain while working for Lizzo. Ariana claims she was under the impression that she needed to explain her weight gain in order to keep her job after Lizzo and her team offered her time off from rehearsals to go to therapy. I don't know if Ariana feels personally attacked. I don't know if Ariana isn't appreciative of Lizzo offering therapy, but even Ariana herself says there were so many things happening at that time when Lizzo offered the therapy. It wasn't just the weight gain. So for me, it doesn't necessarily feel like the weight gain was the only thing that was happening at that time. And it kind of feels like Ariana picked the weight gain as an issue and made it into a bigger issue, despite us, the audience, being unable to decipher whether the weight gain was the actual root cause of the issue or not. It kind of felt like a correlation does not equal causation type of thing, where as a viewer, as a member of the audience, I couldn't really see how those two would fit together. And for me, as I was watching this, that was a question that I had throughout the entire 40-minute interview. Just kind of how do these two things fit together? Ariana then talks about another issue that happened while working with the superstar. Ariana was caught recording a team meeting. She says she recorded the meeting because she has anxiety and an eye condition that causes her to blank frequently, not blink, blank, like blank. So she recorded the meeting because she has been encouraged by doctors to do so. However, it doesn't sound like Ariana asked permission to record this meeting. The three dancers on the couch claim Lizzo sat her team down to interrogate them to find out and learn who recorded the meeting. And Ariana was quick to speak up and own it. She said Lizzo accosted her in front of everyone, yelling, cussing, pointing fingers. Lizzo never touched any of the dancers, and according to the lawsuit, Ariana was fired immediately after. So for me, again, there are a number of things that went racing through my mind when I saw this. And one of those things that came to mind instantly was consent. Ariana does talk about consent quite a bit during this interview.
Is I'm gonna stay. Yes, I'm gonna stay, which sounds like consent, right? But how is consent a thing when there is an imbalance of power?
But my question for her after hearing her say this is, did anyone give you the consent to record this meeting? Ariana talks about how she doesn't believe she was able to give consent. due to power imbalances in a variety of instances covered during this interview, but never does she talk about anyone consenting to be in this video that she took. The dancers do also sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So, does the NDA or any of her employment contracts say dancers or anyone on the team really are not allowed to record team meetings either at all or without prior consent? I don't know. And within the boundaries of this interview, I have no way of knowing. I am just speculating. But if Ariana wants to blame her firing on recording this video, I am curious to know what, if any, restraints and rules were put on the dancers by Lizzo or just her employees in general. Because having a clause in something, whether a contract or an NDA or what have you, saying the recording of team meetings is prohibited with or without prior consent does not seem completely crazy to me. That seems reasonable for someone who is dealing with intellectual properties, especially things that have not yet been released to the public. So, was this a matter of just breaking the rules and being terminated as a result? I don't know. But that was my thought process as I listened to her recount on this issue. Asha Daniels is also featured in this interview, and Asha is a fashion designer who went from Project Runaway to starting her own fashion line and working on projects for Lizzo's team. Now she is also suing Lizzo alongside these three dancers. She claims people on Lizzo's team were guilty of putting their hands on her, shoving clothing racks at her, and pushing her into clothing racks. And she says,
The fact that she felt comfortable putting her hands on me and talking to me that way let me know that she doesn't respect me. And the only thing that's different between how she interacted with me and how I saw her interact with other people is that I was a Black woman. And she felt like she could get away with treating me that way.
my issue here is Asha Daniels does not know what she doesn't know. She can say people on Lizzo's team felt like they could get away with things just because she was a Black woman, but Daniels doesn't know how the team is treating white team members, male team members, etc. This statement feels like Asha is putting the blame on Blackness because she is saying this is only happening to her because she is a Black woman when she can't know that this is the case. She cannot know this would not happen to her if she wasn't Black because she does not have that experience. She cannot know that this would not happen to her if she wasn't a woman because she does not have that experience either. And as far as race goes, the interview didn't share anything about what white team members were facing. So I'm not entirely sure how she came to that conclusion either. Something else I saw in this that bothered me quite a bit was this.
I want a world where Black women can come and perform at the height of their career for their talent and not suffer these abuses and not be silenced and not be treated unfairly.
She says she wants a world where Black women do not have to put up with all of this, but honestly, I want a world where nobody has to put up with any of it. Tolerating this stuff in the workplace is not right for anyone. It doesn't matter your gender, your race, what you're doing, it does not matter. It's not right for anyone. Another thing I wanted to touch on that I saw in this video that I thought was worth mentioning was the pay issue these dancers are bringing to the court. Slay Smiles is a dancer turned talent manager, and she talks about how when you're a dancer on hold and you don't know when your next gig is because people won't tell you whether or not they hired you, and because of that, you are losing out on potential income when you are a dancer on reserve, and people will not tell you if you're in the show or not. My thoughts on this: when you are in the application process for any job, you are losing out on potential income. It does not matter if you are interviewing for the job, if the company is deciding whether to move forward with your candidacy, whatever. This being on retainer, as these dancers put it, is not exclusive to the dance world. If you are not chosen for a job, you need to find another one if you are in the job market and need an income. So I am failing to see how here these women are bashing Lizzo for having a retainment period while they're deciding on dancers. This is the case for nearly all jobs I am familiar with. You apply, and oftentimes you are not compensated for your application or your interview or any time in between. You're waiting around in between interviews, and from your interviews to your offer letter, you're not compensated for that either. And from the time of a signed offer letter to when your butt is in your seat at your desk on your first day, you are not compensated for that time either. So I am failing to see the issue here. The final thing I am wanting to touch on from this video is from a September 2023 award ceremony for the Black Music Action Coalition, where some of Lizzo's background dancers touched on the impact Lizzo has had on their lives. Lizzo's praises were positive, and when Lizzo came up on stage to accept the award, she said,
I'm going to continue to put on and represent and create safe spaces for Black, fat women.
I have a couple of issues with this. One, I do not think it's right to focus on creating a quote unquote safe space for a very select few. I think a better goal would be to create a safe space for everyone. If Lizzo is standing on stage and admitting that she is committed to creating a safe space for fat Black women, how are her employees supposed to feel? Or is being fat and Black a qualification for working on her team? Can normal weighted white men not feel safe while working for Lizzo because she's not committed to creating a safe space for that individual? I don't think this does a good job at promoting diversity or a diverse workplace, because having a homogeneous workplace, whether that is all white people, all Black people, all women, all men, all skinny people, all fat people, what have you, is not a diverse workplace. And it's not a message that promotes diversity if everyone in Lizzo's corner is fat and Black. I also take issue with Asha Daniels coming out on this interview and saying things against fat people and being upset that people are being called fat.
Yeah, Amanda would regularly mock both Lizzo and the big girls, and she would refer to them as fat.
When Lizzo herself is coming out on stage and saying, I only want to create a safe space for fat Black women. Lizzo comes out and calls people fat, and it's okay. So why is it okay for Lizzo to call people fat, but it's not okay for Amanda, who Asha Daniels was talking about? with that, I think I'm going to end today's video here. Thank you for watching. I'd love to hear what y'all think on the situation, so please feel free to share your thoughts below. Thank you for watching. See you next time.